morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. But no matter what, it's Friday. Happy Friday, everybody out there, and welcome to Beyond the Sim. I'm Shaun Cole with my good buddy, Billy Strange. Billy, how are you today on this glorious Friday?
I am great, save for back issues that hit me out of nowhere. It's wonderful. Nothing like just, I wasn't doing anything. I was just walking, and all of a sudden my back's all nope, and I literally dropped to the ground. So that was fun.
That sucks. I hate back issues.
Right now, I'm like trying to figure out like the right position because it's like right on the right side in the middle of my back. I have no idea what I did. It literally dropped me to the ground.
Oh, that's terrible.
It was cute. It was fun. I suggest everybody don't do this.
Now, I understand you're in one of those. Aren't you in one of the
stream?
Check the stream.
It says not public, unlisted.
Oh my God. Hold on, everybody. Let's see if Shaun can fix this on the fly. Oh my God. Yep, it was. Yep. All right, let's try to. All changes are saved. Oh, should I restart the stream, Billy? What do you think?
I have no idea.
Wow, what a way to do the final show. I'm not sure. I made it unlisted. I mean public, and it said changes saved, but it also means that nobody got. Oh my God, what a horrible.
It's just par for the course.
I think we should just restart the stream real quick. What do you think?
That's sure. Why not?
Okay. Everyone watching, bear with us. We're going to be right back on the air. Very sorry about this. Whoopsie. We'll be right back. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Happy Friday, no matter what. I'm Shaun Cole. That's my good buddy Billy Strange, and we're here for Beyond the Sim, the final planned version. I don't know how to call this. This is the final show for now, but tune in because there may be more. Billy Strange, other than our technical difficulties and
we had a crash in turn one. Had to have a complete restart because the whole field got wiped out. Everybody had to run to their backup cars and had to replace a couple oil lines. And
you know what today's show's like? Oh no, a corner. Oh, Tom Jones is calling it the final show of season 1. There you go.
That's season 1. There we go.
There you go. Billy, why don't you catch us up on how you're doing this Friday, this wonderful Friday? And anybody watching the show, be sure to share the stream because we did have some difficulties. So if you can share it out there, maybe more people will show up. My bad. I'll take the hit for that one. A good portion of it, at least. Anyway, Billy, how you doing? Friday. It's
great.
Friday.
It's Friday. Yes.
It's Friday.
Just wonderful. Nothing beyond that. I already talked about my back issue prior to this. We don't need to go into that again. What else? I don't know.
Kevin Carter. Billy has been called into work, and so now there's a conflict of interest in time, and he has more obligation with work. So Beyond the Sim has been put on the shelf, and I'll go ahead and finish this conversation now, and I'll mention it again at the end. Next week there will be a pit stop, so it'll just be me alone. And and then over time we'll make a few decisions, whether it be guests and doing something different. I don't know if I'd want to fill your seat. I think I would rather just do something else with guests rather than. And then when Billy gets on top of his schedule, maybe we will do spontaneous Beyond the Sims from time to time. So who knows? But there will be a show next Friday. At least we'll be able to hang out together. So that's that.
Yeah, Tom, yes, I love money more than I love the show. Actually, no, I just like to live. I like to be able to afford things. So, yes, and thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it. The show's fun. I enjoy discussing. I like having discussions about this stuff. So it's not like I've had a lack of or short of opinions. So I don't know. That's the fun part about it. I wish... Quite frankly, I wish I could do it more often than just once a week. And now that I'm not even going to get to do it once a week, I'll have a little bit of withdrawal. We'll still have shows from time to time whenever we can put them together. It just, Monday through Friday, the way work has changed is not going to allow me to be consistent with a Friday show at the same time without having like major interruptions. We could literally go live at 9 and then I'd have to shut it down at 9:05 because I get orders or whatever because I'm a purchasing agent. So it's just not feasible right now, but it doesn't mean that the show is dead. It's just not going to be in the format that it is currently.
Yeah. So when we sort that out, we'll let you know. So yeah, but I feel like this is our show. So when people have suggested, before you'd even left, we joked the seat's not even cold and people are trying to fill your seat. But no, I just this show is. I always loved this in concept, and I want to thank Brandon Waters for really being the catalyst that pulled it together. But It was really great because you and I are pretty good friends in the world of sim racing. At least, I mean, we don't get to hang out offline, but I mean,
that does suck. We were talking. I think you were talking about this on a show, one of your pit stops, where I wish, like, not just us, but as a whole, everybody was a little closer so that every once in a while we could all get together and just BS or check out somebody's rig.
Right.
See what they're running, just talk shop. Like, it would be cool. I mean, it's great that I get to meet a bunch of people over the internet. I've met a bunch of great people, and that's awesome. It's just, it sucks that you can't have that. We're all so spread out, especially here in the U.S., and then we have a bunch of people that are what do we call them? Our virtual friends.
Yes.
Over, across the pond and in Australia and just all over the place. And it would be, I know that Sim Racing Expo exists, but for a lot of people, that's not a reality. And it just sucks that we don't have a way that's, obviously money's a thing. So it sucks that we don't have a way to just get everybody together. And it sucks that we just don't live closer to each other. The proximity thing.
Yeah. You're like one of my closest as far as geography goes, sim racing fans. It's like you and I actually live in a reasonable distance. Well, that's still about an 8-hour drive, but that's a good reason to support the show, though. We are saving up our dimes for a used G5 so that we can send it abroad and pick people up and bring them in.
Perfect.
Yeah, the SimPit jet is in the
count
works.
Me in for a $1 donation.
We are almost there. We're just a few more of those away. So, I agree. And that's one of the things that I think has made sim racing so special is the fact that it makes the world so small, because I have good friends all over the world at this point. But at the same time, it points out just how big it is, because logistically, I might not meet a good majority of these friends I have that live in Germany, England, Spain, all over the world, Asia. I mean, I can keep naming countries all day long, but I'd run out of my inventory of countries. But it points out how small and how big it is, and it's in both a good and bad thing, because I'd like to meet a lot of the people that we I consider my friends. We hang out,
Right.
and if you hang out in a chat, beyond doing like just, it gets that next step. I guess I'm also hoping for, and I don't think we're going to get to a point where it's a webcam world where every conversation is via webcam, because I think a lot of people are shy. So what we will have is like the avatar version, where it's that next step over typing chat or just voice chat, but being able to have physical movements and things associated with it. But I'm afraid everyone will hide behind an avatar, so it wouldn't really be like hanging out.
Right.
I mean, unless you consider that blue monkey, your new best friend. It's like, no, it doesn't do much as far as it wouldn't be a whole, but it would. I think
Then you meet him in real life, and you're like, you're not a blue monkey. I was expecting something else. I've been lied to. So just somebody I wanted to Cranky Pants. No, not going to affect the band, or at least it shouldn't. Speaking of the band, I have a show on the 22nd with Trapped out in Orangevale. A little, not too far of a drive, but a little bit of a drive for us. So that should be pretty good. And then Scorpion 2, Billy, how are you feeling about VR these days? I still don't have one. Again, I think it's cool. I like the idea. I don't know. I'm not there. I'm not ready to pull the trigger yet.
Tom Jones thinks that I should drive the Datsun halfway up and you should drive the Hellcat halfway down and we should race. Tom, that would be so unfair. I will concede the victory to the Hellcat right now. My car, the Datsun, as much as I love my Datsun, I have so come to terms with what that car is. It might as well be a T-bucket hot rod. It's like, it's so overmotored.
It sounds cool.
It sounds awesome. But it doesn't hook up that well, and there are a handful of reasons. It's a great car for its era, but that car was built in 1971 and doesn't have anything.
I think my car would be a little bit of a cheater compared to yours, because it's got it's got freaking launch control. So
yeah. I mean, now, if I was rich, I would modernize my Datsun. If I was rich, I would so love to take that shell and turn it into a modern era supercar. And I think the body shape is suited for anything you want to do. I mean, it's an obscenity of money to do to a Datsun 240. Anyway, okay. Billy, what have you been up to this week?
Oh, we'll talk about Grid in a minute, but I did put out a review on that.
You think we can be done with Grid in a minute? I think there's more to say.
Oh, no, we'll get to it in a minute.
Okay.
But ran some WRC8 again. Golly, that game is so cool, but yet so frustrating, because when I do rally stuff, I have to play a little bit before I kind of get back in the rhythm.
Right.
And man, combine that with every once in a while, I question some of its calls that it's given me, and
yeah, the pace notes in that game aren't super helpful.
It's funny because sometimes they're right on the nose, and then sometimes I'm like, you said caution, and there was nothing to be cautious about. And other times you don't say anything, and so I go barreling in there and end up on a rock like I did in my last video. But I still enjoy it. It's still overall, it's impressive the way that it's put together, the way the car feels, and the stages themselves. I really enjoy WRC8. Played a little bit more of NASCAR Heat 4. I have to say that I tried a race, and the tire management on that race compared to, so I ran Atlanta and then I ran Las Vegas, and you've kind of same-ish track, mile and a half oval. For that type of game, I didn't think it would be so different, but at Atlanta, they have presets for the setup. So I just picked the loosest setup and just ran that, and I came from, basically back of the pack and finished 7th. Right. And then I go to, and that was, I think, on the hardest difficulty or second hardest. I don't remember. Something like that. So then I was like, man, I made That's what it was. It was second hardest. So I was like, man, I may turn up the difficulty. And I'm kind of thought about it again. I'm like, let me try one more race before I turn up the difficulty. So then I ran at Vegas, and in less than half of the race, so the race was like 20, 25 minutes long, I cooked the right rear before halfway. I kind of worked my way up. I was battling with other trucks, and all of a sudden I cooked the right rear. I couldn't hardly hang on to it at the end of the race.
Right.
Because I made the race length long enough that you shouldn't need to have a pit stop, but it's taking it all the way so that the tire life is pretty much shot by the end. I was surprised at the difference between the two. So, I mean, that's good. That's something that they promised, so they delivered on that. So that's good.
Right.
What else did I drive? I feel like I drove something else.
That's already a fairly impressive list right there.
I drove something else, I think. I can't remember. So we're going to say I didn't.
Okay. We're going to leave it at that? Right on.
I think that's it.
I don't know what my problem is. I have so many problems. It's not even funny. This week I haven't been able to do anything. So I was supposed to on the 22nd drive up to Laguna Seca. I mentioned this on the show, so I'll make it very brief. And Monday night, Chris Considine of CXE calls me. He says, "You ready for your trip?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "You're going up to Monterey." I'm like, "No, I don't go to Monterey until the 22nd. But it turns out that the truck, the trailer, and the guy who was selling us a car were ready for this Tuesday. So anyway, on like 5-minute notice, I flew to Monterey and picked up we're going to turn an old SCCA race car, an ITB Porsche 924. We're going to convert it to a Lemons car. So I did that, and I had to leave at 5 a.m. and I didn't get home till 1 a.m. And then Wednesday I did the show, and then after that I was just like, just shot. And then and then Wednesday night, I was getting frustrated with my studio. And I don't know why I do this to myself. You'd think I'd just leave it alone. But yeah, I've made so many changes recently trying to get it sorted out. And all the changes had made it like the worst it's ever been for me. And it was like so hard to get in there and just like film something. It was like, how have I made it worse? Like, I'm pretty good at this stuff, And so yesterday I woke up and decided I wanted another platform because the giant one that I had to spend a day building and spend a day destroying didn't work out. I wanted a new platform, and I wanted to make it sensible. I needed my rig. Oh, who's that?
Hello.
No,
no star.
So yeah, I built a new platform with an integrated monitor stand. So it's now, believe it or not, I have my entire footprint is only 4 feet by 2 feet. And then I have triple monitor width sticking out off of it. But one piece, everything moving around. I shed a bunch of weight off of it, so it's a little easier to move. And it's hopefully going to allow me to get, here's set A, here's set B, here's set C. Don't mess with it. I almost swore. Dial in the lighting for those positions. And then
that would have been 20 push-ups.
So blatant. So yeah, and now it's ready to go. It'll be ready to race tonight.
Cool.
So, but it meant very little sim racing. It's been all on the road. I did do a race at Base 51 while I was down at CXE. The shop, we drove the Radical at
on iRacing,
yeah, at Imola, and no, Assetto Corsa. I'm sorry, it was Assetto Corsa. The Radical, which is their Radical.
I was gonna say I don't know if I've driven the Radical on Assetto Corsa.
This is the Radical that was built for the Norwegian Cruise Lines Radical Motion Sim.
Oh.
Yes, this is very exclusive.
Oh.
But other than that, I've been really working my ass off, but not getting to drive this week at all. But it's all in the name of I just want to get a little more serious and focused on a couple certain series and things. And like, I really want to try to get my I rating up. And I know to a lot of people, it's like, who cares? But it's like, I've hovered at this 2600 I rating. And, I'm the first one to admit that I do everything in my power to protect my I rating. Because with how often I race and how good I am today, I'm probably more like a 18 to 2000 level driver. But I have this.
I think I can count all the official road races I've done on two hands.
I like that. It is one of my favorite aspects of iRacing. So I want to embrace it. By the way, I'm feeling very orange today. Lit heavy okay. From here, but again, we're about to optimize all that. That's big goal of the weekend. So, anyway, yeah, I didn't get to do much. It meant also while I was on the road that Grid came out. And then I still haven't given it a shot. I'm not pro or against it. I just sort of been really busy. So it's like, well, it came out. There's a million videos already. Optimization of the studio might be more important than Grid. And then I can wait to find out if I should pay my money for it from talking to people before I do anyway. So anyway, that was my week. And that takes us to the news, which, funny enough,
it's Grid.
The first topic of the day is Grid, believe it or not. Look at that, Grid. I'll start things off, and then I'm going to hand it over to you right away because you've played it. You've done videos on it. So what I'm going to mention is the news aspect of Grid, introducing the Grid Community Race Lobbies. We'll be running multiplayer sessions for players through private match beginning this Saturday, that being tomorrow, just for fun and to prove your skill against the world. So you can join their Discord, and I'm not sure if there's just news there, but here's the dates and the console or the platform. Oh, it looks like it's all PS4 and Xbox One. Not sure how I feel about that.
Nice.
And the classic circuit. So if you bought it on one of those platforms, which I don't think that's the platform I'd go buy it on. Are they not doing that for the PC? I don't know. I'm just going off of their page and their information here.
I guess not.
All right. And with that, I hand it to you because what I have here, I just pulled it up and I'm hitting play, so hopefully you won't demonetize our own show. But what you're looking at here is Billy Strange Racing on YouTube, and this is his first Grid 2019 impressions on the PC, and you can see him talking and driving. And so, yeah, I mean, what do you have to say about Grid in a nutshell? I mean, obviously, I want people to go to your channel and listen to your thoughts and opinions there, where it really is probably best stated and seen simultaneously. But how have you been enjoying Grid, I think, is my first question.
I like it.
Yeah?
Because it doesn't try to pretend to be something it's not.
Right.
So while the could be short on a few features, I know there's I think there's only public lobbies for multiplayer. I don't even think you can set up anything yet. They said they're going to work on that. They're going to add in the ability to make your own races, that kind of thing. But right now, I believe you just jump in and run with whoever is available. But I don't know that I really play a game like this for multiplayer stuff anyways. I don't know.
Right.
Some people will, and I get that. Because it could be fun if you set up your own room with a bunch of your friends and then you guys are just giving each other hell going around the track. Because that's kind of how I imagine it's kind of like in the Wreckfest vein, I would say, where you're in there, you're being competitive, but you're also there to give each other hell while you're driving around the track. I kind of liken that to Grid to that. So I like it. I like the fact that I got some questions like, well, okay, so why did I get irritated with some of the stuff in NASCAR Heat 4? I got the F1 2019 question, and I'm like, well, I just and the Porsche, the R Factor 2 Porsche question, like, well, can you like this but not that? I just don't like the way they perform. I just don't like the way they drive. So that's a separate issue. NASCAR Heat 4, said they were focusing on the PC, but yet didn't implement PC stuff. No field of view, no mouse support. Like there were things that you tell me you're going to do it, but then you don't. And it's like, why do you have 1 lap qualifying when it should be 2 laps? Why is there's just certain little things that are frustrating where I feel like grid is exactly what they tried to tell us it would be.
Right.
Because
So I'm watching some of the oval here at Indy in stock car esque
yeah,
type of car. It looks like it's really wishy washy through the corners.
that's a little bit of getting used to it.
Mm-hmm.
Once you kind of get the hang of it, you can hold a line. It's just the back end, it slides. I mean, the game is just, if you put, I tried to explain it to Brandon the other day that if you put arcade racers on a spectrum where Ridge Racer and like Sega Rally are on the extreme end where you just kind of button mash. I'll call it button mashing, where you just kind of stomp and steer and then you just kind of drift it through the corner kind of thing. And then you have Wreckfest, which gets close to blurring the line almost.
Yes.
It still is an arcade racer, but its physics get really close to being like a little bit more fidelity here. This could be pretty close to a sim. Grid is like a step or two more in the arcade direction.
Okay.
That's kind of how I describe it. Is it doesn't drive like Wreckfest, but it reminds me of Wreckfest because there is still a finesse that you have to have. And I went into it thinking it was going to be closer to Ridge Racer, which I'm not opposed to those games. I mean, I played them back in the day and they're fun, but they're fun for about an hour and then you're kind of done.
Right.
Where the grid stuff, you need, at least on the steering wheel, using it with a wheel and pedals, you actually need to have some finesse with what's going on, especially like you're braking. And then when you apply the throttle, you can actually spin the tire really easy. And depending on the car. So far I've done the old muscle cars, done the stock cars, done the GT cars. And then I did the Mini. And then I just ran the F1000, the little formula looking car. They all handle vastly different, which is nice. So each one requires a different way to throttle input. So like the stock cars around Indy, I thought you could just flat foot it, but what would happen is the back end would start breaking loose and then the car, you'd start chasing it through the corner. What worked a little better is roll out of the throttle just a hair, let the back end start to come around it, and then squeeze the throttle back in and like kind of hold it as you go through the corner. So it's like those things. I like being challenged in that manner to understand what the car is giving me. Force feedback is decent. For a game like this, again, it actually surprised me with how much fidelity was in the wheel.
Okay.
It's not super detailed. It's not going to blow you away. I made the claim, if you're really into force feedback, then this probably isn't going to do it for you. But there's weight in the wheel, there's centering. When you hit curbs and bumps in the track, you can feel it in the force feedback. The only thing I had to do was change the degree of rotation to 360, because to me there was a little bit of sloppiness, like a dead zone. That's the one gripe I have, is that you couldn't tune any of that stuff. You could tune the saturation of the wheel and you could tell it to soft lock or not, but you couldn't get rid of, to me, that feels like they've put in like a little bit of dead zone in there. So I had to shorten up the degrees of rotation to 360, and it kind of helped get rid of some of that play so that I could catch the car and feel it a little better going through the corner.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the car slide, it's, I saw some of the criticism and I kind of looked at it and I was like, well, what did you expect when they told you it was going to be an arcade racer?
Sure.
Like, I'm not sure what people wanted. Some people are disappointed that it's not Grid Auto Sport. And I'm like, but they didn't say that it was going to be Grid Auto Sport. They said it was going to be arcade. And
Right.
Grid Autosport kind of did that Codemasters things where it's kind of like a Wreckfest where they're trying to be realistic, but not too realistic. So it's
Right.
not really a simulator, but it's definitely more challenging than an arcade racer.
So now in Wreckfest, and it's mostly the name more than the way it drives, but like even if I'm playing, well, it's encouraged. So it's like you spin your opponents out as much as you try to make a clean pass. In this, does the game, and it's okay if it does, I'm not trying to does the game like bait you into having that Wreckfest driving mentality where it's like totally like I'm gonna do stuff against this AI that I couldn't do against humans and that I wouldn't do in even a Codemasters game because it would just be, that's not F1 racing to just move your guy out of your way, the guy out of your way in front of you. Did you feel like it's just totally cool to just lean on people and play that overly aggressive arcadey style racing version?
Yeah. I mean, you can kind of play it how you want. I try not to, but as I've played, one of the flaws I see in the AI is that the mid-pack cars and the slower cars tend to slow down way too early for tighter turns. I wish they'd kind of tune that because it takes you by surprise.
Mm-hmm.
Because what the AI does do well is defend. Like they'll on very hard, they move to the middle of the track when you're coming into a corner. They think you're gonna try to pass them. They'll move into the center. They'll dive up on the inside. They'll spin you out. I mean, especially when you get the rivals. So you kind of get that where you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to shove it. I'm just going to push my way through then. If you're going to leave the door open and, you kind of do a little door banging on your way out, where I would never race like that in a simulator or against another person. But it's nice to have something where you just jump in and don't really worry about that stuff. I don't know. I'm having fun with it just because it's different. Like it is decidedly different from everything else that I'm playing currently. And I enjoy that fact. I enjoy being more aggressive, trying to do my overtakes, but still trying to complete them as clean as I can.
The graphics of the cars look awesome.
I think they look really well. Some people weren't impressed by it. I think, especially like the atmosphere and stuff at the track, I think it looks really nice.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful looking game. The car models are really cool, and they have some car models that aren't. So when I'm talking about the slutty cars of sim racing, the Porsche GT3, I can't think of a lot of games that have like 78 Camaro, which is like, I love.
They have a freaking AMC, the Javelin. They have a Javelin. How often do you see a Javelin Trans Am car in a game?
Oh, I see a picture of a true Can-Am car, too.
Yeah, they've got Can-Am. They've got the M8D and the 91730 in there. So they've got they've got V8 supercars in there. They've got some really cool cars in there. And I don't know. Some people like, well, it's a grind. Well, it's a callback to those games of that era.
Yeah.
Like there's free play where you can kind of run whatever you want. Essentially, you still have to buy cars, but you can rent cars, but you can't do that in the single player in the career mode. It's got 13 locations. Each location has a bunch of different variations. Okay. Is it the largest track list ever? Obviously not. But I don't know. I guess it's because I'm old and I come from a different era. I remember Gran Turismo had 9 locations and 11 tracks, and then you could run them in reverse. It was like, and I spent hours and hours and hours and hours. And I mean, I can't tell you how many hours I spent.
Right.
And I had a great time. So I don't know. I don't look at it where I'm like, oh, 13 locations. This sucks. I'm like, I've been playing for hours now, and I haven't even run at every location, and I definitely haven't run at every configuration yet.
Right.
I think their fictitious tracks are actually done pretty well. Most of them have like a nice flow to it. They do have some real world tracks, but for the most part, they're fictitious, and a lot of them are street circuits. So that kind of harkens back to the original Grid stuff. I recall a lot of street circuits in Grid 2. I don't know. It's a if you want a break and you don't like if you ever played arcade racers and had a good time with it, if you ever played the original Grid and had a good time with it, you're more than likely going to enjoy running this. If you never really played arcade racers and don't really understand arcade racers, then you're probably not going to like this because you're going to see a GT or a modern GT car or a DPI getting sideways in the corner and go, I don't understand that. That's stupid. And you're
Right.
right. It is stupid, but that's kind of the point.
How did the game do at baiting you into the next event? You know,
Oh,
and
I want to keep going. Like it's hard because I've kind of been chronicling. Like I started the career over and did a couple things, so it's hard for me not to continue to play. Like make a video, stop, and then do that. I want to keep playing, so I'm
see,
like down to keep going. Like I just want to keep playing.
I am so
It's not.
waiting for the first sim to copy everything not on the track of a great arcade racer or arcade game for that matter. But like the day that one of the real hardcore sims can add that fun factor element that quality arcade racers have, it'll be hard to stop playing. You know, because it'll combine my favorite things all into one, and it's not a lot of stuff, but it's that baiting you into the next event. Um,
And I'm a bit of a min maxer in these types of games, so I get money and I'm like, okay, X car that I can buy that'll put me into a different series, and what's the best car that I can get? And then I mean, so I'm into that kind of stuff, and so it just the loop that it provides you begs you to just okay do another race, and
right,
they're quick, they're not super long, you know, so it kind of keeps begging you to try it again. Here, try another track, try a different car
right.
with another track, that kind of thing.
Well, if it's only 5 or 6 minutes, let's say, for an event, you always have enough time for one more. Versus, and that was one of the things I remember about like Gran
Yes.
Turismo is when you start getting into those higher levels and all of a
You
sudden
got
you're
to
like,
the endurance races and it's like
yeah,
whatever it was 300 kilometers or whatever, you're like,
yeah,
oh okay, this is going to take me a little bit.
yeah, I don't have time. And then that's when the word, the grind became a word in defining an arcade, career mode. The grind. And it's like, well, that only happens when they start getting into like really long events or like near impossible challenges. Um, as long as it keeps them coming at a decent pace, I don't feel that word comes into play.
I'm getting cars. I'm able to afford new cars like every other race or every 3 races. So to me, that's not bad because again, the races aren't that long. It has qualifying.
Oh, wow.
We've got Forza and stuff that won't do qualifying for who knows why. And that's I think what I mean by Grid doesn't try to be something it's not, where Forza irritates me because the longer they've gone on, the more they've become the thing that they say they're, the more that they stray from the thing that they're trying to be. You know, the no, I don't know. Like, I prefer the way the wheel and the force feedback is in this versus Forza. Like, I just don't like the way Forza feels. I'm not talking about Horizon. Horizon is a little different story, but the Motorsport series is frustrating because I remember having a great time with it in 3 and 4 and taking it for what it is. And then we get to now we've gone all the way to 7 and it's like, you guys don't have qualifying again because why?
Right.
But we're a motorsport simulator, but yet we won't do some of the stuff that is basics like field of view. This has field of view.
Right.
For crying out loud. All the people that got irritated at me for saying, that NASCAR Heat 4 doesn't have a field of view option. Here's your arcade racer
Right.
that it doesn't go far enough, in my opinion, but at least they put something in
At
there.
least they addressed it.
So it's like,
what was the motivation for part 2 starting over? What do you mean by starting over?
so I got the Ultimate Edition. The regular edition releases today, and it gives you a bunch of credits and gives you cars to start with the Ultimate Edition, and that is a topic that we should let's take a diversion here for a second. I'm getting a call on my watch just like you. Go away. No matter what the game is, whether it's a racing game or any number of games you would play, like a Resident Evil, or Resident Evil didn't do this, but like a Call of Duty or anything like that, right? I always feel like when developers put either these editions together and they're like, pre-order or buy it, now and get it 3 days early, and we're going to give you all this extra stuff, right?
Yeah.
A, I wish there was a way to turn that off. B, are you telling me that you're not confident in the way you've designed your game, that you need to give me this extra stuff? Or while I'm playing your game, you have to constantly bait me with these speed up? Like there's a big controversy with the game that just got, I think it was the new Ghost Recon game. And for a minute there, they had, oh, thanks, Move. For a minute there, they had this where you could level up quicker, whatever it was. So when they do that, I always question, like, are you not confident in your game design?
Right.
So I wish there was an option when I do these things that I bought, because I would have bought the standard edition, but because I'm trying to be informative, I buy the early one. And so I messed around with the cars that it gave me, and then I got to part 2 and just restarted my career. So I'm not using the cars that they gave me, and I'm not using that $100,000 that they gave me, and I'm trying to start like you would what I would assume in the normal. And so when you do that, all the cars cost money except for the cars in the invitational. So my assumption is you start in the invitational and then you earn money and then you go up into the other series and start grabbing cars. So that's what I started doing. And when I started doing that, I enjoyed it even more doing it that way than when I originally started playing it for the review, because then it gave me like a goal, like, all right, I've got to at least get 26,000 to get a different car. Like, how much am I going to earn doing this mini race?
Right.
Oh, Scuderia, thank you very much.
Hey, Scuderia Bassani, thank you.
So I don't know. If you're on the fence, I'd wait for a sale. Like if you're not sure, then I'd wait for a sale. But again, if you like that diversion, if you like the old arcade racers, if you liked Grid, then this is probably right up your alley, because I'm having fun with it. It's got a good loop for me to just want to keep playing.
Right. Oh, that's really good to hear. That's really good to hear. I mean, I wasn't sure. I was hoping for something right about what you're talking about. I was afraid that they were getting too serious, because when they showed this like huge diversity of like disciplines, I was like, are they getting? Is it going to be found in that opposite? So if Wreckfest, let's just say Wreckfest is like that middle point in my sim scale. Are they going to be more sim than Wreckfest? And I'm like, I really hope not, because everything else they do is just barely more than that anyway. So it would be just creating a different variation of dirt, or a different variation of F1 2019, just with these full body cars. And it was like, no, I want something different from them. And keeping it.
I was kind of along that line. I was kind of concerned when I did see the cars sliding around all over the place, because I'm like, oh god, is this going to be like a Ridge Racer? Like, can we not go quite that direction?
Well, that's
so yeah.
cool.
To your point, I did want something different. And I was afraid by them showing those cars that they weren't going to go in a different direction. And then it's like, okay, we have another. Who is this for? Well, again, I think they did a good job in telling, they took that extra month, and I think that actually benefited them this time because they were able to put out more videos that really, in my opinion, clued people into what Grid was about.
Right. There's
So
no there's no misunderstanding that you crossed the finish line, huh?
right? I love it. I love the stupid confetti. I love going across the line and seeing my car, and then when so you have a teammate, which it was hard to tell. Again, in the Ultimate Edition, it was hard to tell how much the teammate plays a factor, but I figured out that they gave me a teammate that was really good.
Oh,
So I got rid of him. I
right.
fired him in my new career and got a low-level teammate, and now it's making it much more difficult to win the team things that you're supposed to be winning. But then you come up to the team page and it shows all the cars rolling up for first, second, and third for the team kind of thing. Little touches like that I like. There's a funny thing with the announcer. The announcers, you could take it or leave it, but they don't typically announce through the race, but they kind of give an intro to the track and kind of say generic things. But what's funny is if you interrupt them, if you just say start now while they're talking, they'll still talk as you get into the car, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, looks like we're ready to race. Here we go.
Oh
Kind of
my.
thing. It's just a little tiny thing that I think
That's
is really
clever.
cool that they put that. They didn't just keep talking or just stop talking. They like stop themselves and they're like, oh, we're getting a call that the race is getting ready to go. So let's go down to the track for the action on whatever. It was just, I don't know. It's kind of neat.
Yeah. And that's, like I said, those are those little arcade qualities that as sim racers, we forget that we are still gaming, and when you get into the gaming world, and I think a lot of sim racers might not have ever really been gamers, right? Like, this is such a different type of gaming. But if you're an old time gamer, it's like these are the things that have made video games so awesome over the years, is the great cut scenes, the great dialogue, the little things that just kind of bait you into the environment of the game you're playing. And in this case, it doesn't matter what type of game you're talking about. We could be talking Call of Duty or Twisted Metal, the same type of thing, and that commentary. And I remember, gosh, what was the original game that had it had I'm losing my mind. Daryl Waltrip, doing like the pregame, build up, and
It was
going.
it was like one of the EAs or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was. And it's just, but that stuff to me, again, it goes a long way. There's the confetti and the fireworks,
Great particle effects and the smoke. Like, I mean, the performance is really good. I'm not having any frame hiccups. I'm running everything on ultra, I think. Except for one setting because I was kind of dipping into the 50s in the frame.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I turned one thing down to high instead of ultra, and it bumped me up so that it never dips below 65 or something like that. But I'm mainly staying in the 80s and the 90s. So performance is I think performance is done really well. I'm not having any of the frame skipping that I typically have with a Codemasters. Dirt Rally 2.0 was better.
Uh-huh.
But I would kind of get it every once in a while. I haven't had it at all in this one.
Which is great because look at the graphics. I love the street courses. The street courses, I think I've seen 2 or 3 now at this point. But it's like we were talking about Monaco last week and how it's a great driving track, but it's it's so narrow, there's no passing. But it's like I love Long Beach. I love Monaco. I love walled street courses. And how's the curb when you hit the standard curb?
Oh, the curbs are brutal. So you either have to hit them go straight, or if you're coming to a tight corner, you can use them put the front end up on it and then gas it and help it rotate the car. But if you're taking a long corner and put the left front or the right front up on it, man, it just tries to spit you sideways. It's an abrupt thing. So the curves, are overdone, but it's an arcade racer. So it's just one of those things where I could sit here and pick everything apart. But then when I'm picking it apart, that's not what they were trying to do.
Right.
So me not being okay with how the car reacts over the curb is more me than them doing something wrong.
Right.
I have to get used to what they're doing because they're presenting me with this style of game. So I don't know. I know it's not for everybody, but I think it actually turned out well.
All right. Well, that's good to hear.
You can, as a side note, it's not, you can't customize the cars, but you can change paint schemes, liveries. You can unlock more liveries as you drive. And then you can, it's got a color editor. So while you can't make paint jobs, you can edit to whatever color basically that you want for your car in that paint scheme, which is really all that I ever ask for at the minimum, is let me kind of play with that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, there's your nemesis.
Right.
Marlena. Are there a lot? Is it like 50-50 male and female drivers?
I think for the most part. The nemesis system.
Well, that's not very realistic. No,
make it 3 out of 10.
What is this? 2024? Come on.
Right. The nemesis system, it does do something, but I often find that I can guess what the nemesis is going to try and do.
Mm-hmm.
So I can typically avoid it. So I don't know how that much plays a factor in what you're doing, because you can also tell your teammate to block. You can tell them to push. I don't even touch that stuff because I feel like I'm running fast enough anyway that I don't need to mess with it really.
Right. Has Raven West been a factor?
I don't think I get to Raven West until the end.
Oh.
See? Oh, the plot thickens. The other thing was people asked about rubber banding. I think I started to talk about it earlier. Rubber banding is kind of difficult to tell because what I started to realize what was happening is when you do your first race, if it's a multi-race series or a single race, your first race, you line up by your driver rating. So as you race, you start leveling up and it kind of starts picking drivers to race with you.
Mm-hmm.
So you're kind of starting in the back. Now you can qualify and do better or worse than that starting position, as I found out. But the first race, all the fast guys are up front. So you kind of dig your way out of the back because I'm faster than those guys. And then you really have to hustle when you get towards the front.
Right.
The second race, they invert the field.
Weird.
So while I was getting kind of frustrated at the AI because I'm all, well, maybe it is rubber banding, what I realized was, well, no, these are the slow guys up front because they finished in the back in the last race. And I'm having to work through them going slower into the corner. Right. So you kind of have to keep that in mind when you're racing multi-race.
And it also means that the first race, you're constantly focused ahead, looking at the guys you're trying to pursue, and maybe faster than until you get to a certain spot. And then in the next race, you're actually defending as much as anything else because you've got the faster guys behind you now.
Yeah.
Are the AI aggressively trying to pass you?
They are. If they get close enough, I can see, like when that little arrow comes up, I can see that if it's even close, I just shut off early and those guys they will just haul it in. They'll dive bomb on the inside of you. And then you try to do the undercut coming out of the corner. They'll bounce off the fence and then come back across the track.
Yeah.
It's over the top.
It looks fun. It sounds fun. Someone said as long, it comes down to, did you have a smile on your face? I'm watching the video and that's pretty much a smile for Billy. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, it's concentration mixed with a smile. But I just laugh when I'm done or something happens and it's goofy.
And I can tell when you're talking, you have a smile while talking, which to me means you're probably either completely bashing it or totally enjoying it, one or the other.
I think when I'm bashing it, I tend to have more of a why the F is this like this?
It looks cool. Yeah. It looks cool.
I know that most of our audience is sim racing related, so I understand that a lot of people aren't interested in this kind of thing, but I like all kinds of racing games.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember playing Jet Moto when the PlayStation, I'll never forget my parents. I was living on my own. I couldn't afford a PlayStation, so my parents bought a PlayStation for them for Christmas. So I would come over to their house I would, they got like Jet Moto 2 with it or something. And I remember playing that, playing games like that on the PlayStation was just, that's what we did.
Did you get to the Fernando Alonso part?
So the F1000 starts his series of races on his level, but I did not get to Fernando yet.
Has he made any appearances
Fernando
in the game yet?
Somebody was trying to say that your engineer, who sounds like he is so bored. You're in the middle of the pack. You have 2 laps to go. Try to get the next position. It's like, oh my. I mean, hey, look, I understand you're trying to be calm and chill, but holy cow, give me a little bit.
Yeah, don't put me to sleep here.
It didn't sound like Fernando.
Okay.
But no, I haven't seen him. Somebody says that Matt Malone, because he's part of FA Racing, part of FART, he's in it. I haven't seen him, so I don't know if that's true or not, but somebody was saying it on another stream that I was watching. Right. And that's something I always do. I don't watch anybody's impressions or reviews or driving before I do my own, right? So that I'm not kind of influenced one way or the other. But then after I put mine out, then I go watch everybody else's and see,
and compare notes.
Is there something that I missed? What do they think about what, some of the issues that I had, that kind of thing. So I enjoy watching other people's opinions about that stuff. So yeah, okay. I don't know. I'm not upset with the money that I spent. I didn't get it for free. I had to spend, $80 or whatever it was on the thing, but I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the money that I spent.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Even though that seemed like a segment piece, it was actually part of the news, but we planned it that way. So moving right along, next up, we do have WRC. Was that it? I didn't want to cut you off. I think
no, that's it. I mean, I don't. Yeah. There's other things we can talk about, but really, I'm probably just gonna be barking up the same tree.
And I'm assuming you're doing more with it. It sounds like it's worthy of that attention.
Yeah, I just recorded.
You.
I mean, it seems to be doing decent. People seem interested, so I recorded another video that's with the F1000. So I'll have that. I try to release videos on Friday, and they just do terrible. So I quit releasing videos on Friday. So that'll come out on Monday.
Here's a picture of Fernando Alonso racing against his nemesis, Fernando Alonso.
Nice. It's like some Inception level stuff.
There you go. All right, so WRC 8, there was a patch. You drove it? Was that before this patch? Yeah, because the patch just came out.
Yeah, I drove it before this patch. This looks like it's just a language update or something. But okay. If you're having problems in your native language, they've tried to make a fix for it.
There you go. Language detection. So does that mean it speaks and it thought I was talking Chinese? It kept switching my thing to Chinese because it was
well, there you go.
Improper detection. I'm not sure.
Just don't say you stand. Never mind. We won't get into that.
I'd never heard fart either. Theodore just fart Fernando Alonso Racing Team.
Yes, I saw that acronym the other day. I'm all, boy, they didn't plan that one out well.
No, they did not. Not doing themselves favors. All right. What else? What else?
At least it wasn't farce.
What else we got?
You got some Fanatic news.
Oh yeah, this is just small news. Fanatic HQ, that's headquarters for those who aren't good with acronyms, is moving, and we still need more people. And I don't think they're asking for movers. I think they're saying they're moving because they're really expanding, and they need more people in general, not moving help. But they're moving today, I believe, Friday, October 11th. That'd be right now. So if you were planning a trip to the old headquarters at Fanatic, don't go there today. They won't be there, or they'll be in transit. But yeah, if you wanted to get a job, if you are in the Landshut, Bavaria region, they are looking for more people, so you could have a dream sim racing job.
Dun, dun, dun.
That's all I got on that.
Up next is Race Room. Bilsterberg is now out, and it apparently is one heck of a racetrack. So I'm looking forward to taking some laps because I didn't even know of this track.
I was going to say the same thing. Not only have I not driven it, I've never even heard of it.
Yeah, I've never even heard of it, so I'm interested. 19 turns, 26% in elevation changes, 44 crests and dips over 4.2 kilometers. So George was telling me it gets nicknamed the mini Nordschleife because of the elevation change and the type of track it is. So I'm curious. I'd like to see what this is about.
44 crests and dips. That sounds fun.
That's right.
And I got that wrong. It's Landshut, not Landshut. So.
Oh, what? What happened there?
Bavaria. The Fnatic job.
Oh, I must have tuned out. I must have just completely glossed over it because I don't even remember you saying that. I remember you saying don't go there because they won't be there.
No, Tim, they're not looking for movers. Yes, if they pay in pizza and beer, which is the normal payment for friend help. That's for sure. How many times have you been paid or paid pizza and beer for moving?
Oh, I can't even tell you. But you know what? I like pizza. So
is that international
like
or is that
too.
just
I
American?
Don't drink beer that often.
Any of our foreign people, when you have to ask a friend to move, what is the currency of bribe for such a thing? All right. Big news. It was on the TV yesterday. It was actually on television. No, I did not.
I did. I watched it.
And I've talked to like 3 different people who watched it, and everyone who watched it said it was great. And it was like, oh, that is really, really awesome for sim racing. What we're talking about is the Peak Antifreeze finale. This is the championship on the line, and Zach Novak won the race and wins the championship, and with that $40,000, by the way. So what can you tell us about the show itself, Billy?
I tell you that when the presentation was done well. I like the fact that they made sure that the top 4 drivers competing for the championship had face cams while they were driving, so they would change to those guys. Pardon me. Parker Kligerman were way more involved this time with actually calling the race along. Oh no, I know his name. Evan. Last name starts with a P. The guy that was doing the announcing. And now my brain has completely just gone away as who was calling it.
Evan
I apologize.
Pasico.
Yes. Okay, so it was Evan. I really enjoy the way he calls the race. So he did a good job as well. But this time, there was actually a little bit of back and forth between himself and Steve and Parker. And I thought they did a really good job of getting Steve Letarte and Parker Kligerman more involved in calling. I mean, they called a lot of it. And they just did a nice presentation. They referenced sim racing this time. They actually, instead of just calling it e-racing or NASCAR eSports or whatever, they actually were just calling sim racing. So I know that was like a criticism people had of the last time that they were on or time before that they weren't saying sim racing. So they were calling out sim racing, and they were trying to make people understand that, you know, these guys are racing for 40 grand. Like, this is a big deal.
Right.
And Keegan Leahy, I thought, really had him covered from the beginning. Race wasn't too exciting in the beginning. They ran about halfway or close to it, maybe just a little more than, without a caution, which was good because it showed these guys are professionals. They're running well. And then they had a few yellows, so not that unexpected. And then the last 30 laps, if you're any type of racing fan, the last 30 laps or so was the top 4 mixed in with a couple other guys. I think it was the last 30 laps. The top 4 that are competing for the championship win, plus a couple other guys, and they're mixing it up for the win. I mean, they're going 3 wide. They're in a big pack. At one point, the top 4 were like literally almost 2 by 2. They were going back and forth, and then all of a sudden, I mean, Keegan looked like he had him covered, and then Zach pulled it out of the bag and made a pass on the high side, and they ran side by side, and Keegan tried at the very end. He tried to make a run going into 3, and got next to him and just couldn't pull it off coming off the corner. So it was a good finish. Like, it was exciting. It's exactly what not just iRacing, but sim racing in general needs.
Yes.
And they cut to this shot of Zach, which was cool. So I think it went off great. I think they did a good job. And so congratulations to really everybody that was in that race and participated, everybody at iRacing, NBC Sports. Like, it was a great package that they put together. And I know that a lot of NASCAR fans still aren't going to understand, but it didn't look like a bunch of people just running over each other.
Right.
Which I was happy about.
Right. That's what I heard. I heard from everyone told me they look like professional racers. The way the race, it was, yeah. 17 years old, Zach Novak wins 40 grand.
Yep, 40 grand.
That's not bad for 17-year-olds.
And if anybody listened to the iRacing podcast, they're increasing the prize pool up to 200.
Wow.
Next year, with another 50,000 going to teams.
Right. Wow.
So 250,000 next year.
Wow. So the other day I said this. I'm not going to give you my answer. Of the esport that's out there, I mean, now there's some money on the line. You got 500,000 at the F1 2000 series. You got 100,000 here at this one. You've got the Porsche version, the road racing side of iRacing. What do you feel is the hardest to win esport championship at this point in time?
Any of them.
Any of them.
Well, because we've had people branch out. Before I could sit there and say, well, this is where all the fastest guys are, right? iRacing typically had the fastest people. Everybody migrated to iRacing. But now, look at Bono and some of these other guys that have migrated to F1 eSports.
Right.
So
David Payne, thank you very much.
Thanks for all the fish. Okay, that reminds me of a perfect circle, but I don't know if that's what you're referencing. But thank you. I think that the level that everybody, because I think you actually mentioned this before, the level of everybody and the amount of people that are fast now has risen significantly. So I don't know anymore that you could pluck somebody from one series and throw them in another, and they're just going to automatically win it if they're like a 10th place driver in iRacing, where that used to be the case, I would say.
Right.
I don't know that that's the case anymore. And I'm talking like the major ones like a GT Sport or an F1 eSports, the NASCAR one here. And, you might take one of these guys and throw them in the NASCAR heat stuff and they might blow somebody away. But of the more top tier esports that are more prestigious, I think the race room one would be very difficult as well. I think you've got a lot of fast people in there.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's as easy as it once was to just pick which series defines e-racing competition. Does that e-racing?
Yes. Yes.
Sim racing competition.
I think that, and I'm glad you said it that way, because your answer was slightly different than my opinion. I have a turn or twist on it. I think you're 100% right. I think they're all equal because that number one spot is so hard to achieve in each and every one of them. And that guy that you'd have to beat, theoretically, to be number one is so high up on the ladder, that it would be a major feat to beat that person, it's that tight of competition. I feel like the iRacing Peak Antifreeze might be the hardest one in terms of maybe the overall effort. I think it's. I feel like because of the dynamic of oval racing
in general, yeah, ovals in general are not. How do I put this? It looks really simple, but when you start running against people that can actually race an oval, it becomes incredibly difficult because on a road course, you're usually, you always have the guys that are really fast, but there's usually a larger spread in the field.
Yes.
And I know when I did road racing, I was usually faster in one section of the track, and then in another section of the track, I tried to just maintain.
Right.
Maybe I was just equal to the other guys, but there was always like one section of the track I was faster.
Right.
So I could count on that part of the track always kind of pulling me in, and maybe that's where I would try to set up a pass, something like that. Ovals just get so difficult because when you start running with people that know how to drive and set up the cars, you're talking about you can't make any mistake.
Right.
We're all making mistakes, but the mistake you can make is just tiny compared to when I did road racing. I could make a mistake and kind of recover.
Yep. Or you could have 3 corners that you weren't so fast on because the other 8 you were really fast on. The other thing is, I think in general, I mean, I'm not saying this is a definitive fact, but in general, in road racing, the guy who qualified 20th kind of doesn't have a shot at winning the race outside of mayhem or some just brilliant strategy maneuver. In oval racing, the guy in 20th place actually has a shot at the win each and every night.
Yeah, I think that's more dependent. Yes and no. I will agree, and then I will not. Because I think it just depends on the series in the car. Like, so if you look at the Cup series, you can make an argument that the new package they have at certain tracks really doesn't allow somebody to come from the middle of the pack forward. But then some other tracks it does.
Yeah, it's
we can
very
say the same thing.
dependent.
Formula One gets pretty difficult, but if you put if Lewis Hamilton gets a 10 grid spot penalty when he qualifies on the pole, or 15, or he's got to start at the back, he can carve his way through the field pretty decent.
Yeah, that and some good pit strategy. Sure, you're right.
Right. So I think it just depends. I think there's more factors that are at play, but I understand what you're saying. It's probably, all things being even, more likely to happen on an oval because the mistakes that can be made are just almost none. And when they do, they're usually catastrophic. You usually lose 2 or 3 spots.
Sure. Well, and
especially
most
get hung out to dry.
And most pit stops are happening during caution, which is constantly flipping and inverting the field, or potentially can.
Right. You have a chance to bunch everybody up.
Yeah. Which is somewhat unique, because in most road racing, either there are no full course cautions like that, and then even when they do, they don't always bunch everybody back up even. Anyway. Anyway, congratulations to Zach Novak. That's quite an achievement. Beat out some incredible drivers, some guys who've been the dominant factors for the last 6 years, and I'm thinking of Alfala, Conti.
I think they said that the top 4 guys, none of them had ever won the championship before, if I'm correct. And there was one guy in the top 4 that hadn't even won a race all year, but he managed to be very consistent and get himself in. And to his credit, he tried some things, pit strategy and stuff, and it almost worked. He was at the front at the very end with the other 3 guys. I just don't think he quite had the pace. But you know what? He had nothing to lose. He gave it everything he had. So I think it's great for Zach. I think
look at how emotional he is. I just saw the video. I'm playing the video.
Oh, you just saw it? I thought it was cool. They played that on. They played that on air, and then talked to him. I just thought it was overall. I thought it was a good deal.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I think second got 12 grand, if I'm not mistaken. So that's even more than what they used to get for winning.
Yeah. 12.5 was the peak of the peak prior. All right. Very cool.
So I congratulate everybody. I think everybody that participated in that race did a good job. Even the very few that had some unfortunate, we had a few yellows. But everybody should be proud because they represented, in my opinion, sim racing in a good light. Whether we converted anybody or not, that's probably, I don't know if that happened, but if I had to show somebody what sim racing could be, this was an excellent race to show them.
Right. David Payne says, surprise, 40,000 iRacing bucks.
We gave him the old switcheroo.
You have all the content.
Congratulations, you've won.
Oh, too funny. All right, what else? What else we have going on?
Oh, Logitech. Looks like the Logitech G Challenge Grand Finals are kicking off this weekend at PAX Australia.
Interesting.
All right.
Silverstone Sakito? What's Sakito?
Where? I don't see it.
If you click on the image, they're showing 3 races. Silverstone, race 1.
Sakito. That is their
Suzuka?
Their Suzuka.
Yeah.
That they can't call Suzuka. So you didn't hear it from me.
How come they can't call it Suzuka?
It's just not licensed.
Wow. Interesting. All right. What else?
Yes, as Greg says, fake Suzuka.
I just looked at the map. I'm like, at least I know the map. I'm like, that's Suzuka. Dirt Rally 2.0 World Series continues with round 2. That's coming up this weekend as well. For locations, car classes, leaderboards, and more, check out our blog post, which is right there on their Twitter page. And that will show you. I think I mentioned this on the show the other day. So you've got October 8th through 14th. So going on right now, Rally Spain. And Rally Cross is doing Montalegre, Portugal. So there you go.
Is that how you say it?
Probably not. I'm not known as a linguist.
We should just do the whole Tim Allen thing for anybody that used to watch Home Improvement. How do you spell that?
Say it. I can't even spell it. And that really takes us to the end of the news. Before we move into topics, so I don't forget, I will plug one thing. So tonight, we are doing a practice race. This is getting ready to kick off the SimPit Skip Barber Racing Series that we're going to have going on starting next week. I will have more information during tonight's race with the schedule and how you can join our league. Tonight, open to the public. The password, I'm going to give out the password. Getting to the end of the... Yep, it's going to be Pit Crew 2019. If you want to join us in the Skip Barbers, I'm going to open up a practice room at 5 o'clock on iRacing. It'll be hosted by Shaun Cole. It'll be SimPit Racing. Pit Crew 2019 is the password, and it will be Skip Barbers at Olton Park. And I think I'm going to pick up a trick that I used during one of the truck seasons, which is I actually picked the exact same schedule that the iRacing trucks were running. And I thought, if we're all going to put in so much work, we might as well be race ready for Saturday night as well. So I'm thinking and leaning towards doing exactly that and making the first 6 races be the next 6 races on the actual Skippy schedule, so that anybody who's putting in the time that can do it for more than just that series. I think that sounds cool. And then I'm also thinking that no matter what, I want to make the final, because it's going to be a 6-week season. I'm thinking of making week 6, the final race being a doubleheader with an oval race in the Skippies with a road race on the same night. Just to have one oval in the Skip Barbers on our series, like a smaller oval. I'm debating.
The Skip Barber at a bunch of us ran the Skip Barber on an oval, and it was South Boston or something like that. It was fun.
Yeah,
it was tight, but it was fun.
I think it'll be a lot of fun. So I'll have more on that. All the details will be tonight during tonight's stream, which will begin at about 6 o'clock, which is when qualifying will get underway. So 5 o'clock practice room, 6 o'clock qualifying, race start time of 6:10. All are welcome. And then during that stream, we'll have information on the title and how to join the official series starting up next week. So beyond that, Billy, today is our last scheduled show Beyond the Sim. And you're riding off into the sunset, we'll say.
I'm sunsetting this series.
So I figured today was a good day for you to maybe get your last word in. And I was kind of thinking, well, with everything you've been doing, you've been driving a lot of sims. Here we are kind of getting towards the end of 2019. And I kind of want to get some of your thoughts on the state of sim racing, maybe in terms of where are we in the games and where do you think they need to be better? Maybe the same question, and I say maybe because, I'm throwing this at you really quickly. Same thing on hardware, like what, people ask you all the time, VR. you know, where the esport world is maybe as a thought, and then lastly, and I'm going to turn this over to you because I have to run to the bathroom real quick, and I'm inviting you to just talk away on your state of sim racing.
You want to just take a break really quick?
Well, we could do that too, but you could get things going. I won't be very long, or we could take a 5-minute break. Yeah, actually, why don't we do that?
It doesn't take you 5 minutes to pee.
No, why don't we do that? Since I'm throwing a big question at you, let's take a 2.5-minute break.
All right.
As you ponder your answer to this. And then the last one also, and maybe the most important depending on your thoughts, but the state of the community. Like, where are we in the community? Like, forget the manufacturers, because it's really about us, the sim racers. Where do we, the community...
I'm just here for the safety rating.
Great answer.
I saw somebody said something like that. So
Great answer. So, yes, we're going to take a 2.5-minute break, and when we return, Billy Strange's State of Sim Racing 2019.
Joa, if you really need to know, put those two together.
All right, we'll be right back, everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't take 5 minutes. I'm only 51. I'm not 71.
What do I got going on here? I'm all tangled up. Were people just staring at our blank screens, or did you have a whole screen?
Nope, I didn't have anything ready to go.
Awesome.
But I did mention that it doesn't take me 5 minutes. I'm only 51, not 71.
Gotta push on that prostate.
Come on! Come on! All right.
Ow.
All right, Billy. So, yeah, I mean, kind of a big question. I didn't know how specific your thoughts would be on short notice for such a thing. So, I just kind of wanted to leave it open to you on, where you think it all could be better or worse, or what we're just doing a great job with.
All right, which one do you want me to start with first? Pick one of them.
I think right now with you've been on such a tear with sim testing, the actual software and various different sims. You've been really good about getting to all of the newest content very quickly. So, yeah, I mean, how do you feel about the sim software, the games, and things that we're playing, and how they're doing on that in 2019 compared to, where we were, where we should be?
I think as a whole, sim racing is in the best spot it could possibly, or has been in. The amount of content we keep getting, the amount of new, just stuff in general that we're getting. I don't know. each, it's hard to say because I think when you get used to a certain sim, like when you try another sim, you kind of want it to push that direction feeling wise while taking a different stab at maybe the other things. So for what I mean by this is Assetto Corsa Competizione. When you look at Assetto Corsa Competizione, I think people wanted the feel of Assetto Corsa, improve that, but then also take the iRacing multiplayer portion and infuse that. I think people
Right.
are still looking for a complete package. I don't know if we're ever going to get there.
Right.
And if we do, then every sim's going to be the same. And then there's no reason to have all these developers developing things, right?
Right.
So with that in consideration, I think there's something out there for everybody. I think that's something as the community we should embrace. But I also think that there are things that still confuse me. I don't understand the if it's difficult, that it must be realistic, or that's could it be that this person making it just didn't make it right? Because
Right.
there's intangibles. Every sim developer tells you that there are things that they can't model. They just can't. So they have to make it up,
Right.
right? There's just certain numbers that you're never going to, there's intangibles that you're never going to get. So that's what makes each developer have a different take on what something feels like. I don't understand. I'm over it that when developers release a title or just release a car, that you're not giving people a good footing to start with. Again, we've beaten it to death. I've never bought a race car in the real world that I couldn't take out on track and make decent laps with.
Right.
Just
Oh
doesn't
no, a
happen.
corner.
Just, and we're talking within reason. Like, we could cite, somebody could cite, oh, well, that one Can-Am car, he couldn't get around, Jackie Stewart couldn't make it around the track. Okay, we're talking, that's an extreme example. But for the most part, even difficult cars, somebody that is competent in driving, if somebody sucks, they suck, right? I can't make somebody be better if they aren't grasping the concept.
Right.
So I don't expect that person that doesn't understand any of the concept of racing in general, let alone sim racing, to get in a car and be able to make laps, right? They're
Right.
going to be all over the place. They're going to be off the track. So we're not talking about those people. We're
Right.
talking about people that can make laps in other sims and not wreck, not crash. I don't understand the purpose of giving a setup that is ill handling. Why can't we just make it so it's not tuned for the super fast guys? Give everybody a fighting chance.
Right.
And because the fast guys are going to figure it out, right? The fast
Yep.
guys are going to sit there and figure out that fast setup. So that's something I would like to see change.
Right.
And I see it hit and miss. R Factor 2, sometimes they nail it. Sometimes, in my opinion, they don't. Same thing with Race Room. Sometimes they nail it. Sometimes they don't.
Right.
iRacing, like they all do it. And that, I know it's a human thing, right? It's all, I would just like to find like a middle ground so that when you purchase something, it keeps people invested.
Right.
They don't get so frustrated that they go, God, I can't believe I wasted this money on this car, and then never use it for what it was supposed to be used in, which is racing it.
Right.
Like, they're talking about the new, for a good example is the new V8 Supers are coming to iRacing. And the guys that do the iRacing podcast have talked about how much more fun this car is to drive than the current one, which is really difficult. Great. Have a great baseline so that you can go out and people can make competent laps with the car,
Right.
and you will get so many people racing that car.
Right.
that series because it's fun. And I know fun is subjective, right? But for the majority of the people, when they buy something like this, they want it to work out of the box. Then you can tweak it.
Right.
Because each track is going to require something slightly different, but you can take that base setup. It's just like I did with my race cars. Besides knowing the gear ratio, you just take your baseline setup and go to that track and go run your practice and go, okay, tire wear is looking a little different because the temperature is a little different today, and you're making small adjustments.
But you had a car that was consistent and capable enough that you could go do 5 laps and come in and say, okay, it's
and
doing
it didn't
this.
Try to murder you.
Yeah. Yes. Versus, you're trying to fix.
And I'm all for
broken
cars being out of control if they're supposed to be out of control. Like we talk about the old Can-Am cars, man. Those things are wicked. They're not supposed to be easy to drive.
Right.
So everything has a scale to it. And that's I guess that's where I'm coming from is let's make it so people enjoy their purchases, which prompts them to get into racing with others.
Right.
Right? I mean, that's the ultimate goal, right? We want people to have fun. That's how we make them have fun. Other than that, I think sim racing as a whole is in a good spot because, again, I really believe everybody can find one of the titles to enjoy, to have fun with, that fits their needs. So,
okay. So now what about on the hardware side?
I don't know. That's a tough one. We could always wish for things to be cheaper, right? I mean, so taking that out of the equation, I don't know. I think we're really spoiled with the options we have as it is. I think taking the price out of it, I mean, because we could say, gosh, I wish we could have direct drives at the price of regular consumer wheels, $300 or whatever it is.
Right.
So take that out of the equation because I don't know if that's even a realistic possibility.
Well, and even there, to be fair, they are getting lower in price.
They are. AccuForce has a great deal. I think they're one of the cheapest, aren't they?
Yeah.
If not the cheapest.
For all turnkey, yeah, absolutely.
And all the direct drive wheels are going to be of, I'm going to say, good to great quality. And then you get up into like the even upper ends, like the Leo Bodners and stuff like that. So I don't know. Pedals have come a long ways.
Yeah.
We've got lots of pedal options. Maybe that's something that, as we move forward, and I would say developers have been getting better at, but let's make it so one of the great things about Grid was it recognized all my devices. I didn't have to touch one thing.
Right.
So between the more boutique brands versus the consumer brands, so we're talking the Heisingfelds and AccuForce really is kind of on the verge of being consumer, I would say, because of usually their stuff is implemented well. But any of the, Rick Motex, all those, like, we're getting closer and closer to just having those work in a title. So, devs could push more in that direction, but I don't know. I think the only thing that John and I used to get really annoyed with is not coming with the hardware to mount it. So if your if your wheelbase requires a certain screw, charge me the extra $5 and give me the screws for crying out loud. Which I think they've started doing now, but I'm not going to swear to that.
It's funny is the rigs are coming with mounting hardware more than the wheels are, which is kind of.
I haven't bought a rig in a while, so.
Yeah, I'm finding more and more rigs come with extra hardware that are all like M6, so they can mount your wheel and pedals and things like that. So, I think that we have more variety in hardware. It's amazing the variety that you have to choose from. And so many reasons that you could choose one over another. They're not all just carbon copy equipment. All right. Esport, this is our 39th show, and we've been covering esport from the very beginning, which takes us all the way back to the beginning of the year, really. There's been so much speculation as to esport and whether it's moving in the right direction, whether it's overinflated as terms of valuation, and is the return on investment coming along. We've seen doubling of the prize money this year, essentially. What was 50,000 is now 100,000. What was 250,000 is now 500,000, and we're continuing to see even more growth, as you stated. They're doubling the money for next year for the Peak Antifreeze series. So standing back and looking at esport, how do you think they're doing in terms of, is it being presented in the right way? Is it going to sustain itself? Are we going to be able to put these, are people going to run around in Zach Novak jerseys in 5 more years? What do you think?
I don't know if we'll ever get to that. And so I'm going to liken this to when I raced RC cars. They were trying to figure out how to make it more of an event, get people that weren't into RC car racing. How do we bring them in?
Right.
Well, there's a fundamental disconnect. And I think I talked about this before. When we would do the gas car races, the on-road 1/8 scale races with the nitro engines at a mall parking lot, it was kind of our version of a street course, basically.
Okay.
We would get lines, rows of people. And when we were racing once a month in a specific location, people would bring their coolers and a chair, and they would come out and they would watch, right?
Right.
Why is that? The noise.
Right.
There's something relatable, like there's something tangible about what's going on. When we did our electric car stuff, off-roading, when the 10th and 12th scale electric cars would get on the track, people would turn around and walk away.
Right.
And I think we kind of have that same issue. So we are growing because obviously manufacturers are finding something. Manufacturers and I guess more so sanctioning bodies, I guess is the bigger culprit here, are finding some sort of value in promoting these events, right? So I hope it continues to grow. It looks pretty good right now. I mean, we're seeing good things. F1 eSports looks healthy. GT Sport looks healthy. NASCAR, just iRacing in general, for their esports stuff looks healthy. I mean, they had how many series this year pay out? They had stock cars, road racing with the Porsche Cup cars, if I remember right. That's what they used.
Yep,
and then they had wing and non-wing sprint cars pay out. They had the super late models pay out. What else am I missing? Rallycross they're doing.
Yep.
I think they signed some more. Didn't they talk about doing either a Skip Barber or the little Ford car or something like that?
I think Skip Barber has like a prize, not money, but I think there's a Skip Barber leading to the school thing, if I'm not mistaken, something along those lines.
I mean, we look at that, and
there are actually a couple more of those too. So that's not the only one.
Right, and we have another round of McLaren.
Yeah,
doing their world's fastest gamer race room. So that all looks great.
Yeah. JT, I'd like to know your thoughts on your comment above on how you feel esport has hurt it for the average sim racer. And I was going to turn that same question to you. Do you think that the esport world has had any negative effect on, if you're to turn back the clock on sim racing pre-esport, let's go back 5 years. Do you think it's had any negative impact on the daily ability to be a sim racer, or an impact at all?
yes. I think that before you might have had like a spot where the maybe more average sim racer had a chance of competing in some of the competitions. So in other words, you started in a very small pool of people that those were the people to beat. And then as esports started to grow in or sim racing, then it became like anybody can jump in. And now as it's bigger and bigger, we talked about the level of everybody stepping up. I think you're starting to lose where the average guy can compete again.
Right.
Because, there are a bunch of really fast people out there. My bigger concern, though, would be how it shapes the software going forward. What changes are going to be made to accommodate esports going forward? And is it going to get rid of some of the features that we may like now? That's just something to see along the way. I don't know. It may not affect it at all. I really don't know. Maybe it's already to the point where they like how it is, and esports won't have an effect on how our sim racing titles come to us from now on.
Right.
It could go even further where it's just like, we're not going to do much. Here you go.
I feel like, and this one I'm going to jump in and give a little thought on my opinion, because right now I feel like it's done nothing but positive things for sim racing, because esport has been directly responsible for a growth of sim racing. It's brought more attention to it. It's brought more people to sit behind the wheel doing it. And it's a great promotion for something that has always been a little underground. I always felt like sim racing was this underground hobby or sport, and now it's very mainstream. However, my concern is when you take a company like Codemasters, and I don't mean them specifically, but they now have an affiliation with Formula One. Not just as a licensing deal, but a direct relationship and affiliation with. And they also have that same affiliation with McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari, and all these teams. And I'm wondering if they won't be swayed by the limelight, swayed by the, oh, look at the circles that we hang in, and forget what their real job is, which is making sims for us, the end users, not for Ferrari to enjoy, not for Formula One to enjoy or utilize in their promotional marketing, but for us. Will iRacing, with their affiliation with Joe Gibbs Racing and Fenway Roush Racing and NASCAR, will they drop the ball and forget what they're doing in that they're making a sim for us, the people? And if we aren't being happy, well, obviously the sim can't sustain itself as an esport only platform. There just are not that many people involved. And I'm just afraid that they'll have so many business meetings and so many contractual obligations that it will start to have an impact. Now, and this is speculation. I've seen not one sign of this going on. And in fact, I'll go back to, in the case of like the NASCAR affiliation with iRacing, well, that affiliation is also why they were able to fill up the list of oval tracks so quickly through easier licensing agreements, easier to arrange timing. Like, can we come down and scan? Sure you can. The Francis called us personally and said you're coming.
Sure.
And so I think it's had a positive impact till now, but I do still leave room and see how it could take it in a bad direction as well. But again, that's speculation. I don't want to speculate for the negative. I like to be a little more positive and hope that it continues to bring, maybe more driver affiliations too. So you see Fernando Alonso being part of Grid. Maybe there'll be more embracing of the esport world from the pro drivers when it's kind of being mandated. Like, the last thing Formula One needs right now is some F1 driver trashing esport. It would be the opposite marketing of what they're trying to achieve. So maybe it could lead to even more good things where there'll be more input. I mean, I think it'd be really fun. I like the idea of racing against Fernando Alonso in Grid. Like, he's one of those drivers, we talk about the drivers we immortalize and put up on pedestals. And it's like, you know what? I'm sorry, but that's going to be more fun than, what was the name of the random girl name, that I saw when you were driving,
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
And it's like, no, that would be really cool, especially if they're in the game and they can be part of the taunting system for you. Having, Lewis Hamilton challenge you personally in F1 2020 would be a really cool element. And so these partnerships and affiliations are going to make those deals that much easier because, let's face it, Formula One could kind of make Lewis do it.
Right. There's got to be a benefit on that side, getting access to technical information that they might not have had before. So I hope it keeps going. I hope that all this pushes us in the more data we can get, the better cars theoretically will get.
Right.
Hopefully the licensing agreements may even become cheaper because they understand the marketing pull now that title has. So hopefully this all ends up being a benefit. Like I said, I think the only thing that makes it tough is I think what started out as a grassroots thing for people that sim raced. There was this little shimmer of hope, I think, for probably a good majority of us that felt like, oh, maybe we have a shot to compete in one of these series. And I think, again, as the level has escalated in ability, I think that hope is kind of dwindled away. The fast people are always going to be fast no matter what, and it's true with anything else. So we just have to be okay with racing our league races and some other stuff, I guess. I guess it's not really a negative. It's just kind of what is.
And speaking of league races, starting tonight with the practice race at 6 o'clock is the Sim Pit Racing Skippies at Olton Park tonight. And starting next week, we're going to start a 6-week season. You'll have more during tonight's stream if you're interested. All right, Billy, the final question I have for you on today's show, and maybe the most loaded of all. There are
great.
and maybe a lot of different directions to take this one. Now, we the people, the community of sim racing, I think that environment has changed as much as anything else we've talked about today. How do you feel that we, the community, are handling, conducting ourselves, helping or hurting our hobby? I look at this as a hobby. I look at this as a sport. I look at it as a community. And I don't care what you do in life, any of those things are responsible for the growth and shrinkage of their community by the way the people involved conduct themselves. You want karting to be awesome for people? Make it inviting. You want to make karting disappear? Make it really difficult for people to show up and race and have a good time. Same thing with sim racing. You want this to grow? We have to be... Anyway, so how do you think we, the community, have done and are handling ourselves in 2019?
That is a hard question to answer, just because, not that I'm worried about pissing somebody off.
I could certainly get it started because, again, there are so many different directions.
Sure. If you got, I'm trying to formulate a thought here, and I'm not quite sure how to do it. So go ahead.
There are a few things for me, but one angle is, and this is true of everything in life right now. Like, I feel like there's a common online negativity that has emerged, and that everybody has the need and feeling to contradict and state their mind, and they feel that any and every place is a forum for them to state their mind. Like here on this show, I love the comments. We're here for the comments. That's the point of Beyond the Sim. But in other circumstances, even within my own show, I might not be as open to just negative feedback during the show. I know you tested the Porsche and then went into grid, and people were giving you the why did you like this, but why did you not like this kind of questioning. And I'm thinking, do you go to 31 flavors?
That's the whole thing. It's a flippant opinion.
And do you go to 31 flavors and question why one person gets mint chip and another person gets rocky road, and while another person might just get plain vanilla? It's because we all like what we like, and that's totally fine. And I'm fascinated by that way. I mean, if it's a fact, if I tell you it's a 20 Newton meter wheel and you're like, no, fact, it's a 15 Newton meter wheel, you know what? I'm down with that. But when I'm just telling you that I like vanilla, I don't need your argument. You're welcome to tell me you prefer mint chip, but don't tell me that I'm wrong for liking vanilla. I hate vanilla,
There's,
by the way. But if you
I
like it,
think that,
that's awesome.
yeah. Well, I think the problem is there's a difference in having everybody's got opinion. Everybody's welcome to that. I mean, I get to doesn't bother me when somebody tells me that I can't drive. Doesn't bother me when somebody says, X, Y, and Z. Like I have no idea what I'm talking about. So I kind of laugh because I don't think you know what I know, but that's fine. Um, the only parts that really stick for me is when somebody is they they're saying untruths, like like trying to say that I am getting paid when I'm not, or what have you. I think those are the things that bother me. And we all have opinions. Like if I'm going to put my opinion down on Facebook or Twitter, I have to accept that somebody else is going to give their opinion as well. It's just it. When I put out a video and somebody doesn't like it, they are more than welcome to give an opinion. I think the problem is we don't remember that we're talking to a human being half the time. And so there is a way to deliver a difference of opinion instead of say, so not to, we'll take the Porsche video. Instead of coming at me like you don't know anything, you're an idiot, X, Y, and Z. Like, okay, all that just makes me do is just not pay attention and I'm not listening to you. But if you come at me with, oh, well, I really liked the car and here's why I really liked the car.
Right.
I love the fact, and that's awesome. Like, I am happy that you like that car. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean that you can't like it.
When
It's just I don't prefer the way it drives.
When
And
you
so
say it that way, I can't dispute it, right?
Right.
Because you're telling me how you feel, how you think about the
Exactly.
car. Yeah.
So I wish we would get to that understanding that you have to remember you're punching in one fingering it. You're punching in your comments, and when you go for the throat, it just makes the person not listen to you. Nobody else is going to listen to you either.
Right.
So while the community can be great, I've learned a ton. It's a double-edged sword. Like I learn a lot from reading comments, and I prefer to have a conversation with somebody. So that way, if there is some sort of misconception on that their end or my end, it can be cleared up.
Right.
I can learn something like I said, I think in the last show, I was like, oh, well, I didn't think of it that way. That makes sense. Those kind of things. Like
Sure.
I always want to learn in that respect. I think the way that opinions often get delivered when we're punching it in on a screen, not often. I would say about 50% of the time is that you've lost it. You've forgotten that there's somebody else that you're trying to get, I would assume, to agree with you instead of just stating your opinion.
Right.
And your opinion, not an opinion of you're an idiot, right? Well, that you're right. That's an opinion. But you haven't changed my mind at all. So did you just, that's the equivalent of walking out your front door and just shouting it into the sky.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
And if somebody else sees you do that, you look like a moron.
Yeah.
Right. That doesn't make any sense. So just move on.
Yeah.
Just move on. You can go to the next thing. It's not going to hurt you not to comment. Just because you can say it doesn't mean you should.
Right.
But at the same point, I don't want people to not give me their opinion. I don't want people not to give, if I miss the mark, constructive criticism, I don't know. It's the community can be really good at times where, like I said, I've learned a lot, especially like talking with you and talking with the other people. Like I would say 90 to 95% of the comments that I usually get in my videos are pretty good, even if they don't agree with me, right?
Right.
Even if they like, oh, well, that sucks. I really like this car. I'm sorry you didn't enjoy it.
Right.
It's a perfectly acceptable response. Like, you're telling me that you don't agree with my opinion, and you're also telling me that you understand. That's a perfectly acceptable response.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know how to address that question, because there's part of me that really likes the community, and I think we have a good time, and I think that, I think part of the job that people kind of forget is we're here to entertain as well as be informative,
Right.
and that just because we say it doesn't mean it's written in stone. Like, I don't know.
Well, and to an extent, if you do what we do, you're forced to give an opinion on things that you might not even have that strong an opinion on. But if I'm going to fire up a game and I'm going to present it to you, I have to kind of talk about all sorts of things, even if they don't necessarily affect me so significantly. But I do have to mention it because that's my job. Every time I mention a new topic, a new feature, it's open to somebody else's thoughts and opinions. And like you said, I think as long as it's presented to me as somebody's personal opinion, I'm such a different strokes for different folks kind of person. It's like, man, I can't tell you what's right or wrong for you. But when you contradict me with your feelings and thoughts, we're arguing over something that we're both absolutely 100% right about. And again,
Sure.
Like I could tell you all day long that I think iRacing has a washed out flat color palette. And that I think that maybe, Race Room has really rock solid, realistic graphical look. And somebody else might say the exact opposite. And there's no way to be right or wrong because neither of them is subjective. It's subjective. When you talk about a broken car, that's much more specific. Now we're talking about, but even that, if somebody came in and said it drove great for me, I'm not even going to argue that fact. You're entitled to your opinion. I
have no argument when somebody comes back and says, I enjoyed that car. I have no rebuttal when somebody just says, or on the inverse, I really liked something and somebody else didn't. I'm not going to say, well, you're an idiot for not liking the thing that I liked.
Right.
I mean, it's my opinion. No. I liked the car, you didn't like the car, or I liked the game or the title, and you didn't like it. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. There's always something other down the road for you. I don't know.
I'd say enjoy your mint chip. I mean,
that should be put on a shirt.
However, pineapple on pizza is just wrong, people.
That'll fire him up.
One thing that I think, and I don't know how we would resolve it, and it's occurred to me for the years, but now I've seen it more firsthand. When we get a new person into our community at Patreon or Discord or just within the Sim community, Sim Pit, I find that we are a really good welcoming wagon, and we get people who maybe don't have expertise in sim racing, and that our group is goes out of their way to help them. Like, oh, well, you need to do this. And I feel like sim racing as a whole does a really piss poor job of doing that. There is no welcome wagon. And if you watched a video or watched one of these eSports series and you're like, you know what, I can buy a wheel. I have a computer that, man, you're so far from being where you need to be. And the information is really hard to find. And there is no take you by the hand version of it. Unsubbing.
That's funny. that's I knew that was good. Of anything, I knew that would help divert the topic on the pineapple thing. That's great.
So and I do actually feel that it's somewhat the responsibility of the manufacturers, both hardware and software. I've been saying this about a lot of hardware that I get, that man, I don't want to have to. I paid you money for this wheel. How about it actually comes with some instructions? I don't want to. What if I don't want to play it online? what if I don't have an internet, but I have a great game here that doesn't require internet? I should be able to figure out how to plug your wheel in and turn it on.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that's not really the age that we live in
No,
anymore.
no,
So
it's true.
that's not going to happen. But what I would like to see is the basics. It's hard. We were talking about degrees of rotation the other day, right? And it's hard to get people on the same page when they find something that works for them, right? So if somebody always says, no, you should run with 360 degrees of rotation because that's what works for me, it becomes very difficult and convoluted when a new person comes in and they get, this person says this person says this,
That's
because there's so
such
many
a great
ways.
example.
There's so many ways to skin a cat here that you're like, and so it becomes, I wish, and I don't always do this the best, but I try to back up and say, when a person is starting, what were the things that I've learned along the way that I wish I knew in the beginning, and then try to give that to the person.
Right.
So getting your pedals set correctly, getting your wheels set correctly, getting your monitor set correctly, understanding what VSync does and does not do,
Right.
understanding, how frames, how your FPS works, and all these things that can help just your initial experience be more enjoyable, how to go in and calibrate a wheel. iRacing does a great job at it. There are other titles that don't do such a great job at it. And then what do the adjustments actually do? Before we even get to hitting the track,
right,
is all of your hardware and all of the settings in the sim title that you're running, are they all in the neutral zone, what I'll call the neutral place?
Right.
Once you get the hang of it, then you can start tweaking things beyond that specific moment.
But again, you know where you're starting and where you're going and what
that's
you're
the
feeling.
thing. I wish there was a way, I could make a video and you can make a video, and then we'll get 1,000 other people that will disagree. And then that person, not that saying we're right. I mean, maybe what they're saying is right.
Right.
But you get this disagreement on how things should be handled. And it makes it really hard for the person starting from zero to get going. And often what can happen is they get led down a path of frustration. And if they're not a person that'll stick with it, then we've lost that person. And that's what I always try to, people ask, why don't you set up the car? Because the average person buys the car and then just drives it. That's why.
Yep.
So I'm not speaking to you.
Yep.
Yeah. Brandon brings up changing the brake settings. Those are there for a reason. So we can play with that setting. We can, understand the relationship in the settings that we're changing, just so that we can make laps.
Yeah.
And oftentimes people forget that, and I'm sure this doesn't happen for everybody, but I know what happened to me is that when I went to a wheel and pedal set, especially coming and then having like a real world racing background, it took me a while to figure out, what are my settings supposed to be? Because it's doing things that it shouldn't be doing.
Right.
How do I fix this? And there's 10 million different opinions about how I should fix what's wrong with the thing that I have.
And it's one of those areas where fact starts to blur the line with opinion or feeling, because iRacing tells you what they want, 900 degrees, right? But then Fnatic tells you they want 1080 for iRacing in their settings. And it's like, well, these are the two manufactured numbers. But if somebody came in and said, look, I do 540 on iRacing, I wouldn't say you're wrong. I'd say you're going against what iRacing suggests. But if it works for you, you're right. I can't argue your feeling. If you drive better with 540, you're right. Lap times prove it.
Right. And there's no arguing when we can, as humans, we are adaptable. Right? We can get used to anything. This goes with the argument that something is difficult, it must be more realistic.
Right.
As a human, we can adapt. That's part of what makes us human, right? So we sit there and we look at this thing and we're like, I really want to learn this. So even though it's hard, I'm going to get it. And then they move on to something that may or may not be more correct, but it's simpler to drive. And then it's like, well, this is a kid's toy compared to the thing that I was running.
Right.
It's no different than setting up the wheel.
No. And it's no different than real life.
Better at 360, then it's like, okay, you run better at 360.
I'll use a great example. We talked about my Datsun at the beginning. Well, if I am at a stoplight and I floor it in my Datsun, it will not move. You know, obviously not the fastest way to go. The tires are spinning. The car's not going anywhere. And it's like...
It looks cool, though.
It looks cool. It sounds cool. It smells cool. But if I want... It's not even a setup condition. If I want to cure that, there's only one way to cure it, and that's with the throttle pedal, you know, and driving around what is inherently wrong with the setup and never going to be cured. You know, but we are adaptable, and it's like, well, sure, chill out just a little bit, and you'll get a fine launch in the car.
I like Devin because we talked about degrees of rotation last time. He said, on that note, you suck. I changed my driver settings to 900 and keep forgetting to fix it in iRacing as I switch cars. This is directly your fault. I will take that as being my fault.
Oh, my. But I was shocked when Fnatic recommended 1080 for iRacing. I was like, wow, that's...
I think the reason that iRacing suggests 900 because they don't have anything that goes beyond that.
Right.
I mean, 1080 is usually relegated to street cars.
Right.
You know, so
yeah.
I mean, maybe if you're driving project cars and because they have street cars in there or Assetto Corsa and you have 1080 available on your wheel, then you can use 1080 and then have them give you the soft lock that's appropriate. iRacing is saying 900 because I don't believe anything they have goes above 900.
Right. Tell you what, though, the wrong rotation will ruin a game on its own for me. If I try to play F1 2019 with a high rotation wheel, it is horrible, like just undrivable. I drove it just last week at 360. I think might have been 540, but I think I was actually at 360, and I was like feeling great driving. You know, it had that. I got it. I tried both. I can't remember which was the right one, but it got it to where I just felt really 1-to-1 with the steering of the car. I'm like, wow, this feels great.
So I will never forget the two moments that I had like an epiphany in sim racing. One was not understanding. So I'm running Automobilista and I'm like, why in the world does all these cars feel so twitchy, right? Well, it's because the way they set theirs up, the middle is linear, not 100%. But if you listen to people, you gotta, everything to be realistic, it's got to be at 100%. You got to be like this. Well, you don't understand that means in another sim when you're new,
right?
So when you're looking at all these settings, you're like, okay, well, this is how it's supposed to be. So it was making my wheel super twitchy. My degrees of rotation were all wrong, and I was like, why is this? I don't understand why this is so messed up. And I went back to the original R factor and I was messing around with something and I realized that in the center is actually what I want. I went to Project Cars and realized that, I went back to Automobilista, went to default settings again and just then looked at this is much easier to drive now because the damn thing's not twitching all over the place.
Yep.
Same thing with your pedal inputs. I remembered that I had to figure out the way that each sim is trying to tell you how to do your sensitivity settings for brake and throttle.
Right.
But once I figured that out, I realized, okay, these guys, when it's 100%, it means it's actually ramping it up too quick. These guys at 100% mean that it's actually linear and so, but you have to figure, and that's the tough part with sim racing because each developer has their own way of doing it. And
isn't it amazing how that's an area where there's never second layer instruction?
Yeah, there's
no hover over, and it's like more linear, which means your wheel will turn, and it's like, come on, tell me exactly, because if you make me go guess, this could take a long time, and we can go the wrong direction for sure.
Well, one of the things that I thought was actually pretty cool that R Factor 2 does is have that graph.
Yes, it's very important. You can,
So
because you physically see it.
You can physically see what the wheel and
Yeah.
pedal are doing. So you're not like, oh, I done messed up. Look at the curve. Look at how fast it's going, or
By
how
the way,
slow it's going. So,
in case any sim developers are actually watching the show, that's one thing there is no reason every sim shouldn't have a verifiable, this is what my controls are doing, screen icon somewhere. But it's like, there is no reason for me to map and not be able to press the pedal and watch its movement and verify that it's achieving 0 and 100.
sure.
And I mean that for all three pedals. I mean that for the handbrake. I mean that for the steering wheel. There's just no reason, and almost no sims do that. A few do, but and I'd actually like them to be really clear. Like iRacing has that little tick bar for 100% throttle. So when you get right to it, you're like, oh, you're almost there, but it's not till it hits that next little bar. And it's very clear that it actually hit 100%.
Bruce makes a good point. He said some of the AC car settings have some confusing descriptions. Yes.
Yeah.
That's kind of like a difference of how they view it versus how other people. I remember getting confused with the toe settings because everybody that I've ever been around in setting up race cars has talked about negative and positive toe, not toe in.
Right.
So negative toe is toe out, positive is toe in. Well, if you look at iRacing or you look at some of these, they talk about toe in. And it's like, huh? Like my brain would break. I'm like trying to think, okay, so if it's going into the negative, does that mean negative toe in?
Double negative equals a positive.
Wait, what? My brain would like, duh. I just don't understand.
Oh.
It's not nomenclature that I was familiar with. So, and some sims do it the way I was taught,
right?
Where they just say toe and then it's just a negative or positive number. Where other sims are like, they say toe in, and you just have to be careful. It just kind of throws you for a loop because they add in that extra. Is this doing the thing that I want it to do?
Now I have to check your formula in particular. This isn't cool.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Well, good, cool talk. So I want to remind everybody out here, today is the last scheduled Beyond the Sim. In case you didn't catch it last week or you didn't catch it at the beginning of the show, Billy Strange, his work. We talk about this in Simracing. It's probably been brought up on Beyond the Sim like 10 times in our episodes. But, real life gets in the way. This is a hobby. This is our pastime or our off work, for the most part, activity that we get to do. Real life gets in the way. That could be family. That could be work. And in the case of Billy Strange, work has gotten in the way, so we've had to put a hold on Beyond the Sim. So a few people have asked, why is this labeled the last show? It's not the last show. It's the last show for a little while, is what it is. So Billy and I talk offline all the time. Well, online, I should say, off the air all the time. And I wouldn't be surprised if the show makes a comeback at some point or gets just special episodes from time to time. Billy and I will coordinate and give you as much advanced warning. To fill the 9 a.m. slot on Friday, I will be bringing back the pit stop, so we'll just be back to a regular news show. I might slow it down just a little bit, maybe do a little more discussion, a little less news, just to kind of take on some of the Friday theme of Beyond the Sim, but it'll certainly be more like the pit stop than Beyond the Sim. Beyond that, check out Billy Strange Racing. That will still be up and running for sure.
Yeah, none of that is changing, and it's not like I won't be available to, when something comes up and we want to talk about it on air or what have you. It's not that won't happen. It's just like I said, this is Monday through Friday changes. It's not a consistent thing that I can do. So then it's going to be more of a schedule like, hey, you got time this weekend and you want to talk about something, or
because this just happened, or
right.
Yep.
And it's the same just with my channel won't change. I'm still available to talk with other people as well, like that. None of that has changed. It's just this specific time slot just does not work for me on a consistent basis anymore.
Yeah. MXer knows. So yes, 39. That is my car number, and coincidentally, what we're labeling the last show. Too funny.
That's right.
Um,
39. We stopped on your magic number.
so beyond that, does anybody out there know why 39 is my number? Did you have you were number 11, right? That's your number.
28.
28. Why did I think you were 11?
I don't know. But it sounds good.
I'm number 39 because the first automobile, I mean, I raced bicycles and other things, but they always numbers are more random there. 39 was the car that I was given when you went to the Russell Racing Mechanic Training Program. You were assigned a car. Like, this is your car. Every time that thing comes off the track, that's the age I wish I was. No, that would be more like 18, 16 even maybe. I will do it all over again. I'll go all the way two, Phil. But 39 was the car number.
Mid to late 20s.
Mid to late? You don't need to do the adolescence again?
I'm good.
I miss playing soccer as a child and Little League as a child. Like, those were such special years to me. Anyway, 39 was the car that I was assigned. If that car ever got crashed, I had to pull an all-nighter getting it back on the track the next day. And I was like, 39. I had it on my toolbox, and it just became my car number. The other thing is, once I adopted 39, I realized that there was very rarely a conflict. Like, that is not a number that is commonly picked. So usually
that's a very odd number.
Yes. So, and I also liked that it was 3 times 13. I was like, you know what? That number works for me. So that is 39, episode 39. Here we are.
I got 28 because when Roar approved me to race, and my dad bought my first quote unquote serious RC car, which was the RC10, the original one.
Yeah.
20 used to be the number that he put on his own car if he could when he was racing super modifieds and sprint cars.
Okay.
Well, in the club, this is back before transponders and everything else. So everybody in the club had their own number. So if they ran multiple classes, they still used their number on that car.
Gotcha.
So you registered with a number, and 20 was taken. So my dad grabbed 28. And that's what I've stuck with forever.
That's the way it works in racing sometimes.
I've run like a number 2, a number 4, 40, 5. In quarter midgets, I ran 20 because 28 was taken. So we went back to number 20. But if I've ever had the chance to pick my number, it is usually 28.
All right. Except for where you were number 1 in the trucks that one season. I remember that.
Yeah. No. Mr. Mark made sure that didn't last long.
And speaking of that very series, tonight at 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock, the race room will be open. Tonight is our practice race for the SimPit Skip Barber series that's going to start up next week. I'm leaning towards and probably going to go with us mimicking the same schedule as the Skip Barber series. So anybody who puts in the time will be able to be that much more ready for public racing on iRacing as well. But tonight, 5 o'clock on iRacing, the room will open for practice. 6 o'clock will be qualifying, and the race start time will be 6:10. And the password for tonight's event, any and all are welcome to join us, will be Pit Crew 2019. Just giving away my passwords. But there you go. Gotta have a good crowd. Hopefully you'll join us tonight. I will be streaming, and tonight I will confirm
it's also his email password.
Use that everywhere. So, anything else on your mind, Billy?
No, I appreciate everybody coming every week and hanging out and chat. I appreciate it. I've had fun. Like I said, I wish I could get to do this more. It's just not going to happen. And like I said, I'm not even going to get to do it weekly now, so I don't even know what I'm going to do with myself. I'm just going to stand in the corner and shout at things, I guess. So that may make me have a diversion into doing stuff on my channel. I don't know, where it's maybe a rant every once in a while. I don't know how this is going to work. I enjoy talking. I enjoy conversating with people about this kind of stuff, and I'm always curious how people see things, even when their opinions don't line up. So I've enjoyed it. Thanks a lot. And this is not goodbye. It's just until next time.
Exactly. Well said. Well said. And with that, we are going to bring today's show to the close. Thank you for being part of the audience. Thank you for being here with great comments and conversation during today's show and all 39 shows, in fact. And we will inform you when we have a new one coming, and you will definitely see more from this pair in the future. But that's going to do it for this one. It's Friday. Get out there, do some racing. I'm Shaun Cole. That's Billy Strange. And that's going to do it for Beyond the Sim.
See you guys.